Hey, it's the Kempo of PubClub.com coming to you from Pub Club World Headquarters in San Diego. And I'm kind of going in and out here to look at the different views here on a beautiful sunny day in San Diego. Hey, I am here to talk about a travel adventure book. It's called, I need to get it in the light, Upon This Rock by David Eugene Perry. And you know, when we travel, we always like to, you do more than go to pubs and clubs, right? Sometimes you sit on a beach or you're in an airport or a train station or something, and we need something to read. I always carry a book with me, and I highly recommend this book, Upon the Rock by David Eugene Perry, who is a guest right now. Welcome, David.
Welcome. And look, I did this just for you, the mask with the martinis.
I like that. I like that one.
This is from one of our local favorite watering holes here in Palm Springs called The Roost. And the martinis are big, the gin is cold, and the crowd is hot. So, you know, I said, I got to have this for Kevin. Your logo on my mask.
I love that. Thank you very much. Well, tell us about the book, Upon This Rock, and how you came about writing it, what's the subject about, and all about it.
Well, thank you. It's first of all, thanks for having me on the show. I mean, the two protagonists in the book, Upon This Rock, which is a murder mystery set in Orvieto, Italy. It's a novel. They both like their martinis. So if you're a fan of the Pub Club, you're gonna follow the adventures of Lee and Adriano. Their husband and husband find themselves in Italy following the death of a dear friend whose ashes they have. And when they get to this tiny small town in Italy, where, you know, people love to eat and drink, they discover a mystery. They find that they arrived on the 1-year anniversary of the suicide, or was it the suicide, of a young man who was going to be a priest. And for some reason, he threw himself from the cliffs of Orvieto. And that is the stepping off point, pardon the pun, to a mystery that is about terrorism, human trafficking, and the scandals of the Roman Catholic Church, including 500 years ago with the Medici Pope, Pope Clement VII. And it's gotten rave reviews. Benton Johnson, Guggenheim Fellow, best-selling author, called it the gay Da Vinci Code, but a lot better. Armistead Maupin, internationally best-selling author of Tales of the City, called it an elegant, twisty thriller. He says that it'll do for Orvieto what Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil did for Savannah. And Jan Wall, Emmy Award winner, called it a sexy historical thriller. And already it's the best-selling novel ever from my publisher, Linden Press, Quill Driver Books. So I'm very excited. It's been out a few months and we're getting great reviews. I'm going to start doing, now that we've got the ability to knock wood, do live events, do some book readings in San Francisco and Palm Springs. And if you find me a bookstore in San Diego with a martini bar next door, I'm there.
Well, I'm sure we have a few of those. We got a lot of martini bars, and now we're actually open.
That's right.
So I was out for St. Patrick's Day last night. I hope I don't look too bad because of that. But
no, well, let me just tell you. So last night we had dinner with two dear friends who are vegans, and we said, boy, on St. Patrick's Day, that's going to be hard. So the guacamole was green. But because we always have corned beef and cabbage and big stiff martinis for St. Patty's Day, we're doing St. Patty's Day a day late. So tonight we're having the St. Patrick's Day celebration, which also, to tie in the book takes place mainly in Orvieto, Italy, but without giving away the plot, a very, very important scene takes place in Ireland. I've already done a virtual reading in Ireland, and I'm hoping later this year to be back near the cliffs of Moher doing another reading of Upon This Rock.
Well, that's the one thing I really liked about the travel intrigue, because it sounds like a very interesting town in Italy. And how did you pick that place? It actually exists. It's not, this is a fiction book, but that's actual real location.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the book is a complete mystery. It's based on a real story, but it's a complete fictitious book. And in 2014, my husband and Alfredo and I ended a challenging year. We lost our 4 best friends, wonderful men. They were our family. They all died in a year, and we were their caregivers. And we were a little crispy around the edges. We were fried. And so we turned over our public relations business to a consultant. You know, that's how we met, doing PR with San Francisco Travel and whatnot.
Yes.
And a friend of ours did a house swap. They took our house in San Francisco and they said, you can take our place in Orvieto. And I said, it sounds great. They said, don't you want to know where it is? I said, Doesn't matter. Italy, terrific. So that's how we ended up in Orvieto, sight unseen, and we fell in love with the place. And I knew I was going to do some writing, but frankly, Kevin, I thought I was going to write a book about ship history because that's one of my passions, maritime history. I didn't expect to stumble upon a story that inspired this novel, so it was serendipity at work.
Well, I don't know how you got all the intro. I call it instantly intriguing because
Thank you. That's my new quote. I got it. Kevin, the Pub Club, instantly intriguing.
Because you get into it and you just start reading it and you're like, oh, I'll just kind of flip through a couple of pages, and all of a sudden you're on, the fourth or fifth or whatever chapter, and then you go back in time to kind of explain the location. And I have to admit, I kind of got stuck, so I haven't gone through a lot of it yet, but I will. And instantly intriguing. So tell about your writing background and your history.
Well, so originally I'm from Richmond, Virginia. I always knew I was going to write, and I went to school in upstate New York in theater and voice, and I learned quickly that I was much better backstage than on stage. But the training I got in voice and presentation did lead to a career in TV and public relations. But I was always writing. I've written thousands of press releases, hundreds of articles.
Definitely.
I've contributed to a couple of business books. But at some point, I always knew I was going to write a novel. But one of my inspirations is the British writer P.D. James, who I think is the best mystery writer anywhere. She died only a couple years ago. And one of the reasons I loved her, besides just being a great writer, is she didn't start writing until she was in her 50s as well. She had a full career behind her, which fueled her books. And I thought, well, okay, if she could start in middle age, so can I. And the thing that I hope fuels my book, and I hope you see in Upon This Rock, is I have a great love for history and a great respect for history. And people have asked me in the book Upon This Rock if there's a section about the Medici popes, or if there's a section about World War II, or if there's a section about the Etruscans, which all is part of the book, did it really happen? And the answer is yes. If there's a historical date in the book, you can take it to the bank. That part's not fiction. That part is true.
Well, that's fantastic. Going from press releases to writing a book, it's just, I've had a lot of people over the years tell me I should write a book.
You should.
But I was like, I don't know what to write. It's got to be something interesting that people will buy, that catches their attention. And I don't even know how to start the process or go about it. So maybe you can explain. I think it's a great, great accomplishment. If I had one of these with my name on it, I'd be so damn proud. Right?
Well,
it's just like, wow.
Well, Kevin, listen, you would be a great author because anyone who tells a story is a writer. And all you need to do is put those stories on a page or a digital page. And now you can actually talk. I wrote mine out. I always say the only reason I have a career is because my grandmother made me take typing when I was 15 years ago, when I was 15 years old, a million years ago. And I type wicked fast. So I actually type all my stories. But if you wanted to, there's these programs you can speak into a computer. And the story about your work with Pub Club, your travels, it would be a great book because I think people love reading about places that real people have been. So I think one of the reasons my book is selling well is there are people who love mysteries, which is great. There are people who are intrigued by the idea of a gay couple who are solving a mystery. That's not the typical thing. Someone referred to my book as the Gay Thin Man series. Remember Nick and Nora Charles, the famous movies from the 1930s and 40s, also a martini sipping couple. But also people like to read about a real place. So for me, I always hope that people will take my book and walk around Orvieto and say, well, this is where this happened. This is where this happened. So I think your history of travel and PR and the wonderful community you've built with Pub Club, you've already got a book in you. You've probably got 3 or 4.
Well, I started a couple of chapters on the website, but I haven't got very far because I think it needs some central theme piece to put it together. Like you're the mystery. And I love the way you actually used a real location because that adds realism to a fiction. And it kind of makes, the beginning when they just arrive in town and exploring, I think anyone who travels can relate to that because that's the first thing you want to do is sort of poke around the place.
Yeah, and so they literally stumble upon a mystery. And like I said, the novel is based on a real event. When we got there, we found out that there was this tragic story of a young man who had killed himself. And we actually did arrive on the anniversary of his suicide. And I found it interesting that at that time it was 4 years after. In the novel, it's a year after. But I thought this tiny town, 4 years after this young man killed himself, they're still talking about it. So what I found even more intriguing than the mystery itself was the fact that the town was still dealing with it. And to me, the thing that makes great writing, and I don't know if mine's great writing or not. I hope it is. People like
Oh,
it, I think.
absolutely, absolutely, no question there.
But to me, what makes an interesting book, what makes a book that I want to read, are characters that people relate to, and very different type of characters. We've got, a young gay couple. We have an African musician. We have an African woman who's part of the human trafficking trade she's trying to escape from. We have three popes in two different centuries. We have a World War II veteran. And one of my favorite characters is a 94-year-old woman, an Italian baker, who is really kind of the soul of the town, because I find that books that are not just about people who are the same age, but about different generations are really fascinating. And one of the things about Orvieto when you get there is there are a lot of people who have lived there their entire life, people who remember World War II. So to me, a story that is multi-generational is fascinating to me. I was raised by my grandmother and my aunts, and the book is actually dedicated to them. So being in Italy, where there's a lot of old nanas, grandmas, is terrific.
Well, very important is, where can people find the book, and how much does it cost?
Well, so you can find it in most any bookstore. It's carried in Barnes and Noble. In San Francisco, it's in Books Inc., Dog-Eared Books. But you can also buy it online. If you just search David Eugene Perry, Upon This Rock, you'll find it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Goodreads. It's even on sale at Target. That kind of made me excited.
You have got distribution like crazy.
I know. So it's being distributed by Ingram Books, which is one of the great book distributors in the world. And you can get it all over the world, in Europe, in the United States. We're working now to have it translated into Italian for next year in Europe. Idea. But also you can go to my website, davidperry.com, and I'll give you a clue. You can buy it online, but if one of your listeners reaches out to me personally for an autographed copy that I will sign, $25 including postage. You just private message me or any of your readers and say, hi, I'm a member of the Pub Club. And if they say they're a member of the Pub Club, a discount. $20 including postage. $5 discount for you.
And, well, thank you. And like I said, when you're traveling, and a lot of times you're sitting in airports and stuff, it's got the travel element to it. So, and it's not a book you're going to rip through and, well, you could read it a day because it'll intrigue you so much, but it's a book where it's going to take you a few days to do it. So while you're on the plane, while you're sitting in a train station, while you're going back and forth, or you're sitting on a beach somewhere, and it's got that travel element. So I think it's a great book for people who love travel.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's having done public relations for a lot of authors over the years, it's a bit daunting and different being the author that's actually selling his book. And my hat is off to my publisher, Linden Press, Quill Driver Books. They've been terrific. When they signed my contract a year and a half ago, I was like, oh my God, I'm a published author. Now what do I do? And they've been terrific. But I told them, I said, you've got a PR person as your client. I'm going to help you with PR. And they said, absolutely.
Well, how did you contact them? And how do you go about getting a book published? I wouldn't know. If I wrote the world's greatest American novel, I wouldn't know what to do with it.
The answer is shameless self-promotion. So at the time, I was the host of a TV show in San Francisco called 10%. It actually ran for 10 years. It was the longest running LGBT talk show in California history, 351 episodes. And as part of my work, I would interview authors. And I was working on this book. And every time I would have an author on the show, after the interview, I'd say, who's your publisher? And they'd say, oh, here they is. And I'd write them. So I just kept writing. I sent chapters. And I'd say about a year into writing the book, the publisher, Linden Press, Quill Driver Books, based in Fresno, California, small independent publisher, but very well respected, especially for first-time authors, sent me a letter. And they said, your idea sounds interesting. Send me a few chapters. So I did. And then I didn't hear anything for a few months. And then when I finished the book in August 2018, I wrote them and I sent them the whole book. And they said, great, give us 2 months. So, okay, all right, August, September. I didn't hear anything in October, but I didn't want to appear pushy or desperate,
Mhm.
right? So then we got to Thanksgiving, and I said, oh, it's the holidays. I don't want to bother them. So long story short, got through Christmas, and this is a true story. January 6th, the first work day for us in 2019, I was on the way to the gym with my husband, Alfredo, and it was a Monday or whatever that first Monday in 2019 was. And I said, you know what? I'm going to send them an email today just to feel them out. Kid you not. I got back from the gym, opened my laptop, and there was an email from my publisher. And he said, I'm sorry it took me so long to get back to you. We've been really busy. I love your book. Here's a contract.
Wow.
So it was terrific. And then a month later, another publisher that I had sent it to, because you send it out to a lot of people. It's like bingo.
Mhm.
Whoever gets bingo first gets it. And they also wanted to publish it. And I said, well, I'm sorry, you got beat. And they said, well, your next one, call us. So we'll see. So the short answer is you just have to work every angle. You can't be discouraged, and it takes time. And
Apparently.
you have to be polite and patient. And I say there's a thin line between persistence and annoyance. So hopefully I struck the right balance.
Well, being in PR, that's what we deal with all the time, right? Trying to
Yeah,
get
strike the balance between persistence and annoyance. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
trying to get that one media hit for the client.
Oh,
So the key is to send book in pieces to several publishers and be patient, 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 patient.
patience and persistent. I would say the three P's: patient, persistent, and perky, meaning friendly.
Perky.
Yeah. So you send a one-page synopsis. Like here's what the book is about. One page, no more. People don't want to read long emails, and they don't want to read long letters. Trust me. And then a few sample chapters, not too much. And then if they come back to you and say they'd like to see more, trust them on that. I did not have an agent. A lot of people have agents, and there's an old myth that you have to have an agent to get a publisher. The big writers, people like Isabel Allende and Ann Beattie, Armistead, people like that, they have agents, but they didn't have agents at first. So I'm hoping that with the success of Upon This Rock, that maybe I'll get an agent who wants to represent me, because my fantasy, actually, it's going to happen. I want this book to be a Netflix series. I think it would make an incredible mystery
Great.
series.
Yeah.
And I want it filmed in Orvieto because it will help bring back tourism, because the whole world has suffered, as you know, for a lack of tourism because of COVID, but especially these beautiful small Italian towns. And my goal is to bring tourists back to Orvieto for a filming of my book Upon This Rock.
That would be quite an accomplishment.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think about? I do know a couple of people that have published books through Amazon, and there's no process of. I think you just. I don't know how it works. My friend's done a couple on finances. Do you have you experimented with that? Do you have any thought on it?
Well, I know several clients we have a few clients, John Murphy, for instance, one of the founders of the University of Phoenix, a filmmaker, his film was called Valley of the Heart's Delight, also a murder mystery set in San Jose, and a wonderful philanthropist, John Murphy, and his wife, Paula. They self-published some books through Amazon and also through Lulu, and they did very well. And then you have to promote them. We have some other clients. I know several writers who have self-published their books, and there's no shame in that at all. I mean, people now are reading more than ever. The real challenge of self-publishing is, one, you have to finance everything. Two, you don't have any input. So the whole process of editing my book, working with my publisher, Quill Driver Books, Linden Press, they made suggestions. They copy edited. They fixed my typos, of which there were evidently a lot.
Well,
So
that's that. In a book, I could see that very common because you're typing and you read it in your head, just like a press release sometimes. And
yeah,
I can see that.
Yeah, so the self-publishing or publishing through Amazon, I think it's great for a lot of people, especially a first-time author. I got lucky. I had made myself a promise. If I did not find a publisher for my novel in 6 months, I was going to publish through Amazon. And I got lucky. So I urge people, the most important thing is write and get it out there. But you have to be persistent. Persistent, patient, and perky. There you go. They're my keys to getting your book published.
I love that. I'm going to do a little test here because I'm not I'm not actually seeing this on my Facebook page. Shows it is. So we're going to switch gears a little bit because you just put out a press release this week, unrelated to your book, but also on something very big here happening in California now, the Great Whale Migration. And
Absolutely.
You've got a client that is a film festival. Maybe you can explain that to us. It's
Sure.
jumping from one to the other, but it's still sort of travel oriented.
That's all right. So for a number of years, we've had an amazing client, the International Ocean Film Festival. It's called the Sundance of Ocean Film Festivals, and it's the largest film festival in the world dedicated to films about the oceans. Their tagline is "Saving the World's Oceans One Film at a Time." And they're based in San Francisco, and usually they have several thousand people come and see it at theaters throughout the Bay Area, mainly at Port Mason at the Cowell Theater in San Francisco. But in 2020, because of COVID, they went all virtual. And what's interesting is they actually increased their audience. They made the films available to everyone. They charge because these are internationally known filmmakers, and they actually increased their audience. This year, because we're still within kind of COVID restrictions, they're going virtual again, but they're hoping that next year, in 2021, they'll have half virtual, half in person. But there's always themes. There's films about surfing. There's films about environmentalism. There's films about sharks. But one of the most popular series are films about whales. And this year, the festival runs from April 15th to May 2nd. It's 18 days of films to celebrate the 18th anniversary of the film festival. And of course, if you're lucky enough to live in California near the coast, right now you're catching the great migration of the whales as they head to feed. And I remember being in Walala, their sea ranch in Northern California on the northern Sonoma, almost Mendocino coast. And you could sit there and you look out and you could see, at first you think it's a cloud or something, but it's the whales spouting, coming up to breathe. And of course, you can go out on a boat, and if you don't get too seasick, you can have whales come up right next to you. So yeah, this is whale watching season. So it's an incredible experience. And the film festival, International Ocean Film Festival, is just the most incredible experience, including filmmakers from dozens of countries all over the world, but also student filmmakers who are contributing movies about the preservation of the oceans.
And where can people find that? Where do they go? The website?
INTL for international, INTLoceanfilmfest.org. But if you just go, again, if you go to my website, davidperry.com, you can click on my book, you can click on the Ocean Film Festival. You know, it's funny, I use my full name for the book because David Perry is a very common name. And if you Google David Perry, the most famous David Perry is a game designer in Ireland. And I thought, God, how can I get myself up into Google hits? So I decided to use my full name. I'm the only David Eugene Perry. So if you Google David Eugene Perry, you pretty much find my books. So that's why I used my middle name, even though as a kid I hated it. I'm okay with it.
My friend who's published a book and is writing another one uses kind of another name, and he uses a middle name like him. So I didn't know if it was an author thing or not. So
no, it's my real name. But I remember when I was a kid, I always knew I was in trouble if I'd stayed out playing too long or something. My mother would lean out the door and she'd go, "David Eugene." I was like, "Oh, damn, I'm in trouble." So I never used it, and I always say I was named for my father's two best friends. One, a crooked rich lawyer, David. Well, I wouldn't say his whole name, and the other, a poor honest lawyer, Eugene. So those are my two names, David Eugene.
An honest lawyer.
Yeah, that's the Eugene. That's the Eugene. I can't say the whole name. I'll get in trouble. But yeah, I was named for a rich crooked lawyer and a poor honest one, Eugene.
Oh, well, fantastic. Well, again, davidperry.com is where you can find the book and find information about the Whale Festival.
Yep. And don't forget, tell your people if they write you. I'm serious. Usually $18.95 for just a book that Amazon will send you. It's cheaper if you get an ebook. But if you want an autographed copy, which who knows, maybe one day it'll be worth something. Usually it's $25 autographed, including postage. But if you say, "Hi, Kevin at the Pub Club sent me," and you email me directly, you can do that through davidperry.com. If you email me directly with your address, I will. You can buy it directly from me. I'll autograph it and send it to you for 20 smacks.
Wow. What a deal. Folks, this is the book. It's instantly intriguing, so it'll be hard to put down. Do it while you're sitting around in the house right now. Do it when you're traveling. We're going to be traveling soon again. I think it's a great book to take with you traveling. It's just, and it's not too big or heavy, but it's
no, thank you. Yeah, and we're hoping to actually travel in July. July in Spain, August in Orvieto, Italy. That's our hope. So here's a toast to you with my mask with martinis.
Well, all I have is a glass of water because it's only.
That's all right. I have coffee because it's not quite time for my martini, but in a few hours, yes.
Well, somewhere I have a clock that says it's 5 o'clock somewhere. That's all. The whole clock is 5 o'clock. So
yeah. Well, hey, when I worked aboard ship, which I did all of '98 and most of '99, people always said the sun is above the yardarm somewhere. It's always time for a drink aboard ship.
Always a time. Well, cheers to that. Thank you for joining me. And it's the capo of PubClub.com. David Eugene Perry of DavidPerry.com, and we are upon this rock.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Ahoy. And thanks to all your readers. Have a good time, drink safely, and don't drink and drive. But do pick up a drink and read my book when you're home.
With a martini.
With a martini, absolutely.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks.
Thank you.